Hi, so here we are in week 11. We are just about three-quarters of the way through the class. I haven't done the exact math, but that's what it feels like. We only have about 4 or 5 weeks left to finish up this semester. So this is going to be a very useful week. I think it's probably one of the most useful weeks for the whole semester on a couple of different counts. Basically, start off by making sure that you read the chapter for this week, which is Unit 7, Digital Security. It covers all kinds of good topics that'll be very useful, from password authentication to how to identify and what to do about things like malware and spyware and computer viruses. That's always very useful. It has information about online intrusions, like what do you do about attacks and intrusion threats and different things that can cause problems. It has information about social engineering, which we talked a little bit about when we talked about social media, but it has to do with spam and phishing and farming and just all kinds of interesting, useful topics for what to do to keep your computer safe and your files, your data, your information. How do you keep all that safe when you're online? Digital security is a big deal. So make sure you read through that chapter. I have a couple of things on our checklist for this week about that topic, but our big topic is going to be this evaluating sources project, which is also a critically useful skill to develop. So first, let me jump over and show you what the week looks like, and then I'll get into some specifics on this project. But anyhow, if we come down here, we come down to week 11. We're making our way right through the chapters. You'll start with your checklist. The checklist is always super important to start with. I know I've said that once or twice or like 11 times. And so make sure that this will tie everything together for you, what you're going to think, what you're going to learn. Here's the chapter 7 to read about, and then the things to do. And then some looking ahead. So we're kind of in our final quarter. The movie review assignment from last week is due next week. And so, but it's due on Saturday. And so, what I did here, because of our evaluating sources project, it has a couple of different unusual deadlines. What I did is I put together an overlapping project deadline calendar for you. And so the evaluating sources deadlines are in bold. Yes, evaluating sources. But then there's a few other things like the movie review. There's going to be a spreadsheet project next week. There are, excuse me, test 2 is going to be open next week. Okay. And then it's due. And we're trying to get that all this stuff done before Thanksgiving, because I don't want you to go into your Thanksgiving weekend thinking, oh, I got stuff to do. That's no fun, right? You need to just enjoy eating turkey and whatever else it is you do for Thanksgiving. Anyhow, you might want to print that little part off if you don't already print off the whole checklist, and or at least copy it over to your own calendar so that you know when things are due. I'll explain those different bits and pieces in just a few minutes. Come back over here to Moodle and let me tell you what's in the Think section. And we're going to talk about some of this in our Zoom calls this week. So there's a couple of videos. One's longer, one's shorter. Okay, the first one's longer, the second one's shorter. But this idea of cybersecurity and why it's so important, and some things that you can look for and do to keep yourself safe. If you're interested in a field of computer science or computer information systems to go into that is ever changing, keeps you on your toes, you have to be a quick thinker, very challenging, but pays really well. Cybersecurity is probably the field. If you kind of like being a detective, but a cyber detective, that's the field. Anyhow, these two videos are going to talk about cybersecurity. This next video is kind of interesting, and it sort of goes hand in hand with that, why you should learn to hack. And his whole premise about this is you should learn to hack so that you understand how all these things work. Anyhow, I'll let you watch the video and you can decide on that. Now, we have some resources up here, and I'm going to go a little bit backwards because here's the assignment. So this is evaluating sources assignment. But there's several pieces here that are resources. So all the rest of this stuff has to do with this assignment. This roadmap contains several resources that are good for strategies. And so you've probably already seen some of these because some of these overlap from when we did the article summary. I don't know what week 4, week 5, whenever that was. And so some of these might be review, but these will be good, useful tips for you on how to identify plagiarism, how to create things with academic honesty, all the good stuff. This next one, like again, I'm going backwards a little bit. This one actually is going to give you some examples from other students for a few different parts of this project. Okay, so there's an evaluation criteria discussion piece. There's a couple of examples there. There's a summary and evaluation piece. There's several examples there. And then I have a link for the library resources. And this isn't really a research project, but I went ahead and included this in here because these are all short steps. If you've never done any kind of research before, whoops, this is the place to start. So just flip through these different sections. It gives you the steps. It's pretty useful. Now, let's go back to the main thing that we're talking about. Let me jump down here. Evaluating sources assignment. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute and give you the big picture, okay? And then you can dig into the bits and pieces, the nuts and bolts of the actual project. So when we did the article summary, we did a little bit of this. Okay, and if you remember, I had you find an article on a tech topic. You had to create a citation using Citation Machine or EasyBib, or there's a couple of others, and you had to summarize the article, and then you had to respond to some questions. One of which was, how do you know this is a reliable source? That's a good question. How do you know, right? And so what we're going to do with the evaluating sources project is expand that out. This time you're going to pick a topic, a tech related topic. It can be one we've covered in class. It can be one you're interested in that we haven't covered so far. Pretty much as long as it's technology related, you can pick it. So you pick your topic. And then what you're going to do is find 3 articles that are current. They have to be within the last 2 years. So 3 current articles that have to do with that topic. And one of those articles needs to be from our library databases. And we've looked at those in the past also. So hopefully those aren't new to you. Okay. And so the library website, and I list a couple that are my favorite. Um, there's 2 different ones that are my favorites that I've listed in the assignment that will be really good tips for you. So you're going to pick your articles, you're going to do a citation, you're going to do a summary, and you're going to do an evaluation. Now, how do you base the evaluation? What do you decide? How do you know what to look for? Well, part of this assignment is you have to find 3 different websites that talk about evaluating sources, but they have to be college level. And I'm going to tell you, like every school library in the country, including like elementary school libraries, they have a little blurb on there about how to evaluate sources. It's that important. Okay, you have to come up with a list of criteria, but don't use the elementary school ones, and don't use the middle school ones, and don't use the high school ones. Find some university level websites. Now, let me pull up a page. Well, let me do something here. I'm going to do screen share and just show you how I would go about it. So I'm just going to type in how to evaluate. Oops. What happens when I hit cap locks? A website. So let's see what comes up here. Now, I don't know if you know this, but again, I want these to be fairly current. So in a Google search, if you click on tools, anytime, I usually do the past year. And you can do this when you're looking for your articles. You can go to the news and look for articles and do the same thing. So set a time frame. Now it's looking for stuff within the past year. So this very top one, how to evaluate websites, Stark State Digital Library. I have no idea where Stark State is, but it sounds like a university. So let's go check it out. I'm really curious where Stark State is. Let me go down at the bottom. Oh, Ohio, North Canton, Ohio. I've been in North Canton, Ohio. Anyhow, so you're going to find 3 websites like this. Now, what you will discover is it's going to give you a list. All the websites will give you a list of criteria, but not all the criteria will be the same. Some will be the same. So this one has currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose. Down here a little bit, it says, who is the author? I would actually put that has to be one of your criteria is who's the author. So even if this site doesn't include it. So you find this site, you kind of list out the criteria. Okay, then you go look for another site. Let's see. You scroll down here, what comes up? Let's see. Oh, here's another. I don't know what CCRI is, but let's see. Community College of Rhode Island. How do I evaluate websites? Again, you see accuracy, authority, objectivity. That's a different one. Currency, coverage is a different one. Relevancy is a different one. So write these out on your list. And let's go for one more. So you got to find 3 different sites. Which one looks good here? RMIT. I don't know what that is. RMIT. We'll find out what that is. Anyhow, so they're looking at relevance, authority, reliability, audience. So they're breaking that out a little bit. So they only have 3 on their list. So what you're going to do is take the criteria that you find on all these different library guides, make a overall list, and you might end up with like 10 or 15 things on your list that are different. Your job is to just pick 5 to 7 of those. Okay, because you can't remember 15 things. You're not going to go look for 15 things. So keep that in mind. You're going to pick 5 to 7. Now let's jump over to the actual assignment. And I'm going to open this assignment in its own window so it's easier to read through. Let me make this a little bit larger so we can see it better. Okay. So curation requirements. By the way, this covers the 3rd SLO of the class that demonstrate the ability to research and analyze using modern computer resources. So we're checking off a big box here. So part 1, find your sources. Okay, just talked about that. I just showed you how I would do that. Part 2, develop a list based on that criteria. So no less than 5, no more than 8. Sorry, I said 7, no more than 8. And what you're going to do is create a couple of paragraphs that discuss each of those items. Don't copy it from the website. Like, don't just go here and, and just copy, relevance and all this stuff. I don't want to copy paste. Tell me what the main point is, describe it. But then why do you feel it's relevant? Out of your list that you have, your composite list, 10, 15 different things, why did you pick this one? Why do you feel this one is important? Okay. And there's some examples. Again, remember I mentioned that there were examples. Whoops, we just reloaded. Come back wherever you are. Here we go. Evaluating sources examples. So you can look at these evaluation criteria discussions and see how other people formatted that. So what you're going to do is create, describe to me what your criteria is and why you picked it. That's part 1. Okay, part 2, pick a technology topic. We already talked about that. It can be anything to do with technology that you find is interesting but current. Find 3 different articles, and I'm gonna change this because I'm gonna say at least one should be from a library database, and all should be reputable. So you have to decide how it's reputable. Okay, you have to pick sources that are reliable, that meet your criteria. So let's go back. I'm going to back up to one of the other sources or one of the other sites that had a few more sources. Go to this Rhode Island one. They had some good stuff. Okay, so this one talks about accuracy. Oh, here we are. Here's our list here. Accuracy, authority, objectivity, currency, coverage, and relevance. So an article I pick, I'm going to have to be able to talk about all of those things. How do you find that out? Well, you have to do a little bit of Sherlock Holmes, and the author has to be one of your topics. I believe I say that up here. Develop your list. The author has to be one of the criteria. They kind of assume that on some of the lists, so they don't always call it out directly, like on this Rhode Island one, but they have to do that. So anyhow, we're going to practice this a little bit in Zoom this week. How do you find out? How do you determine if it's accurate? That's a hard one. How do you know if they have the authority? So does the author might have like a PhD in nuclear science. Does he have the authority to write on jellyfish? I don't know. Maybe he's got a minor in oceanography, but you got to go find those things out. Is it objective? Is it current? Whatever your criteria is, you need to be able in your evaluation to speak to the criteria. Okay. So if you pick an article that doesn't have the criteria, that you can't find it, you might want to pick a different article. And I'm going to add one more thing because I mentioned it, but I see that it's not here. All should be current within the last 2 years. So don't go find some article that's 10 years old. Find something that's more recent on technology. All right. So up here, you've got your criteria list. You've got your reasons why you picked that list. Okay. And you're not evaluating those college sources. All you're doing is giving me a citation. There's no evaluation or summary on that. You're just giving me a citation and the list. And then you're going to pick your topic. You're going to find your 3 articles. And then you're going to create the annotated bibliography. And so this gives you a definition of what an annotated bibliography is. It's pretty common. Basically, a bibliography just has the citations. The annotation is the description. That's all. And so you're going to create an annotation. And so for each one, you're going to you're going to have a citation. You're going to give a summary of the main points of the article so that I know that you actually read it. And then how does this article meet your criteria as a reputable source? So if we go back here, you'll see part 2 examples, summary and evaluation. So that kind of shows you what you're looking for there. All right. There's some examples here of resources. Now, here's where you get a little bit of flexibility. Most people will do this in a Google Doc and they'll share it with me so that I can make comments on it ahead of time, which is fine. As long as you share it with me 4 or 5 days ahead of time before it's due, I'll have time to give you feedback. But you have some flexibility. You can create Google Slides, you can use Pinterest, you can use Digo, you can do lots of things, but it has to cover all the requirements clearly. Okay. But if you do that, I'll consider it. Now, let's go back to this timeline, which tends to confuse people a little bit. So there's 3 parts to this. Okay, the first part is you find all your resources, you get your list, you kind of write up a rough draft. And this whole project's probably not more than 2 or 3 pages. It's probably not more than 3 pages. Okay. It's not a long project, but it's a really important project to help you hone your critical thinking skills. Anyhow, so you're going to post a rough draft to the bibliography. There's a peer review forum. So let me go back to our week. Down here, you see peer review forum, part 1 discussion. So in the first week, at the end of the first week, you're going to just copy and paste your bibliography or give a link to it. You're not going to add a file. You can give a link or copy and paste it to the forum by Sunday of the first week. So by next Sunday, you got to have a rough draft. And then in week 2, this is peer review week. And so in week 2, you'll come to this forum. You'll find at least 3 other papers that have been posted. Preferably look for one first that nobody else has replied to, because then that will give them a reply. Okay. People that tend to post early tend to get the most replies. So keep that in mind. And what you're going to do is give constructive feedback. If you were grading the project based on this criteria, what feedback could you give them to help them make it better? So it might be like most people, here's what most people tend to do is they put a lot of effort into the summary and not much effort into the evaluation, even though the evaluation is most of the grade. Okay. And so you might give that feedback. Don't worry about formatting, because when people copy and paste, sometimes the formatting's a little wonky. So don't give too many formatting feedback tidbits. Mostly focus on the content. Okay, so if you look at our calendar, this peer review will be due here, the rough draft, and you have until Friday to give the reviews, the replies, okay? Because then the third week is revise and submit. So you take that feedback that you got, you rewrite your paper or you update your paper, whatever you need to do to make it better. And then by Wednesday, you upload the PDF to this assignment, the evaluating sources file upload. So this is definitely one of those weeks where you want to check off, use this calendar to keep track of things. Okay. So today we're assigning it. By next Sunday, you have to have a rough draft. By next Friday, a week from Friday, you've got this whole week to make peer review comments. And then you've got almost a week, but not quite a week to make your revisions and upload a final draft. And what this does actually is it strengthens your paper. In peer review, people catch things that I would catch, but they catch them before I catch them. And so you get a chance to fix them before I see them. So it's always a really good process. Now, let me back up here to this assignment. There's a grading rubric on the last 2 pages. It's 100 points. 20 points has to do with what you're doing on the feedback forum. Okay. You get 5 points for posting your version. I don't even look at your version. So don't freak out. Don't panic. Just get it up there so other people can look at it. You get 5 points for just getting it up. Okay. But then where you get the rest of the points is from the feedback you give to people. So give them really good constructive feedback. If all you can say is, wow, that's really good, then find somebody else. Certainly somebody's going to have a problem you can comment on. But if all you can say is that's great, then move along. Anyhow, evaluating the websites, it's all the criteria, all the things we've talked about. But you can see the summary is only worth 15 points, but the evaluation is worth 30 out of 100. Okay, so put your focus on the 30. And then the mechanics, document formatting, did you follow the rules, etc. So print this off, use it as your guideline. I think it'll be really useful. This is one of those things where we are so awash in information and articles and videos and just all kinds of stuff. You really do need practice deciding what's reliable and what's not reliable. And so this gives you a chance to put that into action without writing a big term paper. This would be useful if you were going to write a term paper, you'd have a really good start on it, but you're not. So I think that's it. I think that's it for this week. Okay, good chapter in the textbook, lots of very super useful information and good information and good practice on reliable sources that I think you'll find really useful. And so I will see you in Zoom this week. We'll talk about all of it. So come with questions because we'll talk about it.